This is the Elation NX1 and a little NXK. This is, if you do that and you freak out that you broke the console, they are separate pieces. They just look like they are one. So don't freak out if you bump this and you're like, oh my gosh, I broke the new console. So you're good. The beauty of this console, and one of the main reasons we install it a lot, is this can be as advanced or simple as you want it to be. They did a really good job of creating a very customizable workflow where we can have a million moving heads flying around, hazers, everything, or we can have simple lights fading up and down. It works very, honestly, I mean, he even saw how quick I built some chases and stuff. It just builds really, really quickly. So on our main screen, you'll see it's even labeled First AG Programmer because I can custom label all our layers. So it's really nice and easy.
Can we actually turn it off and then
Sure.
turn it on for them to...
100%. It's going to go black for a second. There is no power down sequence. You just hit the switch on the back.
That was my question too, because I've just been turning off that way. Like,
Which feels weird because it is basically a computer. Like these things are basically just little computers, but there's no shutdown sequence. You just hit the switch. So little switch back here behind, and you'll also notice the house lights automatically turned on. We'll get to that later, but there is a secondary control system for just like basic weekday functions. And when this goes down, it automatically takes over. So that's why as soon as this shut off, you saw they faded up because the other unit took over. And then again, as soon as this powers back on, you'll see all the lights go out again because it sees the console. There we go. So switch is right back there. It's right by with the power cord, so it's pretty easy to spot. It does take a little bit to boot. And then once it loads, you will see a screen prompting you to either create a new one, open, or there's one that just says continue. And pretty much we're always just going to hit continue. If you don't hit continue, it automatically moves in like 30 seconds. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to click continue. And this is going to load basically right back to where we just were. But we'll let it get there first. And now you can see the secondary system basically gave control back to the console. We're going to click First AG Programmer, and now this takes us back to our screen. I'm going to pull this fader down just for now. So on this screen, I divided it up into 4 little sections just to get us where we need to go. So we've got our cue list here. We have our fixture groups here. The fixture groups represent all of the actual physical light devices. We've got intensity presets and color presets. So the cue list is our super basic, like we just need to turn lights on a Sunday morning function. And that's going to be visualized on the top left. If you notice on the bottom of the screen, you'll see 10 little boxes that are colored and labeled. Those 10 little boxes correlate to these faders. So on the full-size Elation consoles, the screen is right here, so the boxes line up with the faders. Unfortunately, with the compact, they didn't redesign the screen. They just kept it the same, but now it's a little bit off. So it's a little bit confusing if you don't know what you're looking at, but those buttons correspond to these faders. So if you look at number 10, you'll see we have something called service cue list. And a cue list is basically just preset values in a next format so that we can have basic light operation on Sunday. So if I throw number 10 up, that's going to make that cue list active. And then as soon as I click that button, you'll see all the information pop into that cue list on the screen. Now once that's open, you can see we've got walk-in, worship one. So what we did is we structured basically a service, like the same way in Pro Presenter that you have your, pre-loop, worship one, whatever.
Yeah.
We basically did the same thing in the lighting console.
Oh, okay.
So now that we have that cue list active, you can see we populated walk-in, which is kind of our pre-loop, worship one, announcements, worship two, sermon, and walk out. Now, this is completely customizable, it's editable, it's whatever. We just, for the sake of obviously doing a training, we just kind of walked through and made a basic Sunday morning service to kind of give you an idea of what to go with. So now that that's open, I can either hit Q, a number, and enter to jump to a certain queue in the list, or if I want to go to the first one, I can just hit go. It's got everything has a real nice slow fade on it so that there's not any subtle changes. And if you look on the queue list, you'll see it's actually highlighting that Q1 is now active. You'll see that little arrow in the list. So to work through the cue list, like if we want just a basic Sunday operation, we're not changing anything, we're not customizing anything, we just want to run the cue list as it is, I can literally just hit the go button, and every time I hit go, you'll see it drops to the next value in the cue list. And this is, so what happened, Pastor and I sat down and just kind of walked through the different looks that we want. So there's announcements then, and then worship 2 is when we kind of take the house a little more blue. Just changing up the color palette just to make it, I love blue and white, but the problem is I've realized that when I program lighting, everything ends up blue and white. So I have to like force myself to do another color palette. So we gave you yellow and red, just to be something a little different. And then we'll go to sermon. And what we did with the front lighting is we zoned the stage differently so that we can kind of, like for worship, we have the whole stage lit left to right because we've got piano, drums, bass, everything going. Well, the sermon, it's just Pastor Josh. So we're not lighting. You can see the sides are now dark. We're not lighting them anymore because we don't need to light them. And actually, I just noticed something that I need to fix. So I'll fix that when we go back through. And then our last one is walkout, which is just kind of a post-service where basically we kind of kill all the front lighting, let the stage just be a color, and walk out. So that's our super basic cue list operation. So at any point, if you need to go directly to a cue, rather than hitting back, like say we want to go back to worship 1, rather than hitting back 4 times, worship 1 is cue number 2. I can do cue 2 enter, and you'll see it's going to jump right to cue 2. So it just gives you some flexibility, obviously, if you need to move around and all that good stuff. So the next fun thing I'll show you. So obviously we already did that our blocks line up with the faders. If you'll notice, the first one is marked spatial bar effects. If I slide that up, you can see we got a nice little chase going on our spatial bars. And then what's cool is if I slide the fader down, it's going to augment the timing and the intensity. So like I can make it like real subtle, like for a more worshipful moment, or I can crank it the whole way up and have it be really pretty active, like during an opening worship song. The next one you'll see is labeled color wash effects. Same idea. We're just using the colored fixtures in the back. Kind of do a little color flashy. And same thing again. We can, if we do the fader just a little bit, it's going to be a little more subtle. Like if we just want a little bit of movement during a slow worship moment, but we don't want it to be super obvious, we can work our faders to get our balance. Just for fun, there's one called sanctuary effects.
No.
Which does the same thing throughout the sanctuary.
I like that.
Probably not usable in the service, but
Fun.
it just felt cool and it felt like
That's
something to
like-
put on the
it's-
concert. Like maybe it's something that you work just real lightly in a real upbeat song. Totally, again, the world's your oyster, whatever you guys decide to do. These are just the tools to do it. And then if you have really good taste in football, we have the Go Eagles override. Super Bowl champions and all. So yes, I did make a cue called Go Eagles on the console. So what we can do too to modify these is it's also very easy. So a great example, we're going to go to the sermon cue list, or the sermon cue, because I left a light in this cue that should not have been there. So those down lights on the far wings that are kind of lighting up the over top the drums and the piano, I really don't want that in the sermon look. So what I can do now that I'm active in this cue, I can go over to overstage side, set that to 0, and you see they go out, and I double tap update, and there we go. So now the next time we go to that cue, those lights will not be in that cue. So now, I know we're getting a lot of information. I'm trying to do it in an order that makes sense, so I do apologize. So that's our real basic operation. That was kind of our Sunday morning cue list. So there is some language in how we programmed. So there's basically 3 or 4 different types of light fixtures that we're using. The spatial is everything that is either like a house recess lighting or like an accent light. So they all talk the same language, so we can use the same presets for all of them. So anything that you see spatial is going to apply to a spatial fixture. So like right here is our sanctuary spatial, which is obviously our recess lights. Here's our overflow spatial, which it's going to be hard for some of you to see, but that's our little overflow over there. We have our overstage spatial, which is those guys. We have our baptistry spatial, which is those guys. We have our cross spatial, which is really cool. It's that one. Yeah, everyone has the same reaction. It's kind of cool. We have our spatial bars, which are those guys, which also I'm completely in love with. And then from there, we move on to the different fixture types.
So just out of curiosity, can you lock down so that the settings can't be changed? Is there a way to do that? Just thinking of how adaptable it is. And...
Not really.
Okay.
Like, so typically what we'll do, kind of the same thing like what we do on audio consoles, we'll save a couple backups.
Okay.
So, because like for sure, my number one recommendation when we're done here today is everyone get in here and just play around. Because you're not going to learn it without physically touching buttons and moving stuff. So we'll have a couple backups of the show file. Plus, I just saved off a backup onto my flash drive so that, God forbid, because every now and then it just happens, you delete it or someone totally screws it up, we have multiple sources we can pull a backup from. Our next group of fixtures, we have our overstage wash, which are those guys. So basically the purpose of them is just to help light the subject completely. So they're just white. They don't do anything fancy, but they help cancel shadow created by the front lighting, as well as when a person's moving, they're going on so many different planes that we need light from multiple directions to make sure that they're lit the whole way all the time. And then we got another group of fixtures is our colors, which are back there. And again, they're just color. All they are is just eye candy and making the deck not white. And then our last one is our front wash, which is our front lighting.
What? Whoa.
And then our front lighting is also divided into multiple zones. So like there's one of our zones, like the piano area. And then our back area, I kind of split into two zones. So actually I'll just light both of them. So that's kind of there. Zone 3 is kind of our main area, so that's going to be, worship leader, pastor. That's kind of our main thoroughfare. And you'll notice we do have more light fixtures in that zone than we do every other zone, just because there's so much happening there. We just want to make sure we're getting all the heads. And then, of course, our last one is our drum cage area. So what's nice, not only does it ensure that everything is lit fully, but it does give you a way to isolate your stage. Like in our presets, whenever we went from worship to sermon, we killed zone 1, 2, 4, and 5. So we just had zone 3 lit. So it's nice because what it does is it helps pull people's focus without realizing it's being pulled. Because no one's at the drum cage, no one's at the piano during the message, so we don't need to light them. We just want pastor lit. So in the group things, you're going to see a lot of different variables, and you'll notice that some groups, like the sanctuary one, is literally everything. So if I do that, that's the entire sanctuary. But some of them, I have all of them, but I also divided them in half. So like we have all of our spatial bars here, but then I also gave you an A and a B group so that we could color them differently. And it allows you just to get to the different groups. So whenever you're going to your groups, if you kind of just look around and click around, you'll see there's different wording and different things, and then you'll notice that some are split. I did the same with
that button that you keep pushing to go back?
Oh, clear.
All clear, okay.
That's my double tap clear. And then front wash is the same. I've got a front wash master where I can light everything, but then at the same time I can go to just zone 3, or just zone 1. So the idea of the presets, it makes everything really easy to kind of grab what you need, so that you can even make adjustments on the fly. Like if you find little things that you want to change to update, you don't have to drag through each individual fixture. It just makes, because the house alone is a total of 16 fixtures. So obviously every time you want to change the sanctuary, you don't want to go 1, 2, 3, 4. You just want to go boom, sanctuary full, done. And then when you also do that, and I apologize, I know some of you guys can't see the screen, but as soon as I click on sanctuary spatial, you'll see that some of the presets gray out and some light up black. So if they're lit up black, that means I have presets available for that fixture. So once I hit sanctuary spatial, You'll see on intensity, all the spatial intensities light up. So I can do 0, 25, 50, 75, 100. And then white, red, green, blue, purple, whatever. And you can mix, so every fixture in here is full color, except for the 6 down white lights. Everything else is full color. So you can mix anything as desired. That's how we kind of do like the blue house during worship and everything.
That's cool.
And then same way, now if I go to my overstage and select that, you'll see a different set of parameters are lit up where I can do overstage 100, select my colors, whatever. So it allows you to just grab stuff on the fly. And then the other thing I was explaining to Pastor earlier, so with lighting, your changes are always tracking with the idea of what's different. And this is what's, sometimes it's a little weird. So if I have, say I have this queue open, because this queue value is open, there's no changes open on the console because it's already saved. Like there's nothing that we have done in this moment to make these lights do this. Now, if I grab the sanctuary and make it green, you'll see that clear button just lit up. So the light on the clear button is telling us that there's an active change that's open. So this is just helpful to let you know if you're trying to update things. Like if we're trying to recolor some of the cues and all that, it's just letting you know that you haven't saved yet. But at the other thing, at any point, if I double tap clear, it's going to remove any changes that are open. So that language means different things depending what you're doing, but it's in its very simple state. That's where we're at with what here is that, you know, it pretty much the only time you're probably going to be doing this is when you're updating cues. So just be aware if that clear's open, it means you haven't updated your cue yet. And if you did something that you changed that you hate and you just want to go back to the cue that's open, double tap clear. But you'll notice for me, it's like a force of habit thing. I don't even realize I'm doing it. Like when I'm jumping through fixtures, I'm just double tapping clear to get us back to 0. Ta-da. So that is the lighting console in a nutshell. Again, you've got piles of options. If you do want to continue to build overrides like what we did, you've got 10 faders, but you've got multiple banks, just like on your audio console where you've got like 16 faders, but 4 different banks. Same idea. So you'll see it's bank 1, and I can literally, I think 30 is the highest bank.
Oh, wow.
So, oh, goes further than that. All right, you have a lot of banks.
We won't run out.
So you don't really need to go, and you'll see the screen follows. So now when we get back to 1, now everything re-updated. So what's funny with lighting consoles, this is a new feature to have motorized faders, which is bizarre. I don't know why it took the lighting world an extra 15-20 years to catch up, but it does have motorized faders, so if you do jump layers, you don't have to worry about remembering what you had up and what you had down.
Then quick question, with the preset ones, do those don't get overridden, or can they be overridden?
They can.
Okay.
So actually it's great. We'll just jump onto that next. So this guy right here is kind of our basic control system. So this is kind of you have a midweek rehearsal that you just need to turn lights on and you don't want to turn the console on, something like that. Or even if you have like a funeral or whatever that you don't really have a lighting operator, you just need lights to work. That's where this guy comes in. This guy is also the brain for all of your wall plates that are around the room. Like if you guys see that one with the purple light on over there, that's one of them. And then we also have one on there, and then we have one over in the overflow section. So this is the switch we want to be aware of. You'll see DMX on and DMX off. With the DMX on switch on, this is in charge. So someone can go to your wall station by the door and push that button until their face is blue. Nothing changes.
Okay,
because
so if somebody's back there and hits it,
exactly.
it's going off in the service.
You know,
And that's so during Sunday morning worship, you'll want to use your lighting console more than likely. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have to, you can use this, but as soon as this goes active, your wall plates also go active. So if someone starts hitting buttons, but what's nice now, it's locked and this is in charge. As soon as I hit DMX off, you're going to see all the switches go blue and you're going to see the lights change. So now that system is active. And then here we basically just programmed a couple different presets. This is just kind of a cleaning preset. This is what's also set to the entry ones. So if you hit the top switch when you walk in, this is what lights up. If you hit the bottom switch, this is what lights up, which is nothing. That's our blackout function. And then you'll notice these looks are identical to what we have in the console because we just programmed them. But this is the same idea. Service walk-in, worship 1, worship 2, message, and then one for video, which we did not put in the console. But the video override basically just, if you're playing a video, it just kind of kills all your front lighting, dims the house a little bit just to help focus, push a little bit to the screens. So great idea. So let's say we want to program that Eagles look to number 7, because right now number 7 is nothing. I'm going to turn DMX back on, so it's going to go out. I'm going to throw that Eagles fader up. So when we program the switch is just going to retain anything that's open. So whatever we've got going on, that's what it's going to save. Something to be aware of, if you have movement going, the switch will save whatever the values are at when you hit the button. It will not save motion to the switch. Okay, so the switch is literally just a snapshot. So just be aware of that. Like, you're not going to be able to save motion to the preset. So let's say we want our Eagles look on preset number 7. We're going to press and hold 1 and 8 until you see the color change on the unit, which it just did. And now we're just going to literally hit 7 because that's what we want to save it to. And then we're going to press and hold 1 and 8 again until the light changes. And now if we go DMX off, put the switch back in control, and hit 7, there's our Eagles look.
Fly Eagles
I say we
Fly
just
Eagles
keep
fly.
that.
And updating the switch is that easy. And again, the main idea is it's kind of like your during the week thing, you know, just to give you a little something. Like, even if the worship team's practicing and they just want a little bit of mood lighting, they can, you know, hit one of the worship cues and at least have something to work with. And then they don't have to worry about firing up the console and all that stuff. Plus, it gives you a backup on Sunday morning, you know, that you have something that you can at least click through. So, but those are our 2 systems. And that's kind of the gist. So, questions out of the gate. I know I just hit y'all with a lot of information.
How do we change? Just say red and yellow is up, but we want to change the colors. What would be the easiest way to?
Yeah. So let's go back to the console. So we're going to put the console back online by flipping that switch. We're going to open our cue list. We'll go to worship 2, which is Q4. So let's do purple and green, just to be different. So we'll start overstage color. And again, I told you some of the groups are broken up into 2. So I'm going to go overstage color group A, and we'll make that green. We'll go overstage color group B, make that purple. And then spatial bar group A, I'm going to make green. Spatial bar group B, purple. And that's it. And now, say that's what we want to lock down to that worship. All we do is double tap.
We're already.
Yep.
Yeah, you can change it with holidays and stuff. True, I didn't think about that.
And then we can recolor the
St.
cross
Patrick's
too
Day.
if we want. I don't know if any of them look good.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I like
the
purple.
white.
Purple looks good.
And then if we wanted to update that cue again, we're just going to double tap update. And so now that cue, next time we go to it, is there. So one thing to be aware of, the presets in there and what we save in the cue list in the console are not necessarily the same thing. So when we update this, if we want the preset plate to reflect that, we do have to go through the save progress. That's one thing just to keep in mind. Just because you update it here doesn't mean the preset plate. But it's a nice thing because it also allows this to work independently. Because if there's functions, because like we don't really care to have a cleaning look in the console. We're not going to fire up the console to make a cleaning look. So it's great because we have a look in the preset, which is the only time it's going to get used. So, and then you can so with the colors, I just kind of gave you generic colors, but you can everything is RGBW, so theoretically you could mix anything to be anything you want. So if you do want to, actually, I'm gonna use the mouse. So like say we wanted to make everything yellow. So we're gonna grab our spatial bars. This is where it's just a little bit weird. In this section down here, this is our fixture programmer. I'm going to hit that arrow just to make it bigger. And now this is going to show us all of the programming variables within that fixture. So thankfully it's fairly simple. Like a moving head has a million variables because you got gobo 1, gobo 2, gobo 1, 2, rotate, intensity, beam width, color. These are up and down and color. So there's not a whole lot of variables to play with. So we select our spatial bar, we hit that arrow to expand the programmer, and now I can go to color, and I can literally mix whatever I want.
Oh.
So, red and green makes yellow, right? Yeah. So I can spin that up. Now we've got yellow as a color option.
So these 4 are here?
Yep.
Is that how that is? Okay.
So the encoders respond to what's there.
Gotcha.
We can add white. The other cool thing you can do is you can double tap. Of course, now it's not wanting to do it. There you go.
Oh, you have full spectrum to choose from.
And then you can literally just,
There you go.
you can grab whatever you want. And then you'll notice,
Wow.
Can you gradient them?
you can do that. Oh, manually,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that allows us to just grab whatever we want then.
You double tap what, the
Just like any
bottom?
color
The-
spectrum
Yeah.
after
Yeah, so if
that.
you double tap on the color
Sorry.
itself,
Oh,
okay.
it's
that's
going to
fine.
bring up the
Okay.
picker. So one thing to be aware of, because this has a white value,
Mhm.
the color picker most times will default the white to being 100%. So if you want it to be a real deep color, you may just have to manually spin your white down.
Okay.
So like even though we spun the picker to red, it was kind of like peach
Mm.
because the white values were up. So now that the white's down, now we're going to get our real deep colors. And then usually a rule of thumb, when you're done doing that, just rehide your programmer. That way you can see all your variables.
And that was just this arrow right
Yep,
here.
just that little arrow. It's the one thing, the fixture programmer. And then again, these are all, and I tried to organize our fixture groups in a way that made sense. There'll be a little bit to understand just because not all of our brains work the same. And you might look at things and be like, you're an idiot. Why did you put those like that? The other thing to be aware of too, and I'll show you guys this real quick, in case you get into intricate programming, because we have 2 sections of lights in our center zone, 2 of them are a little bit tighter in the center with the idea of 90% of the time he's going to be in the center. Versus the other 2 are wider, that they're lighting the full 20-foot wide space, or 15, yeah, it is about 20-foot wide space. With light, it's like it's light projectors, light fixtures, whatever. The more narrow the beam, the brighter they get. So in all of our programming, we actually had intensity differences between the narrow beams and the wide beams. So in case you're getting down in the nitty-gritty of grabbing fixture by fixture, just something to be aware of. You'll see zone 3, there's one called zone 3 wide, which is our real wide one. And then you'll notice one called narrow that you'll notice is significantly brighter because it's focused a lot tighter. So like a great example in all the programming you just saw, I had the narrows at 25%, but I had the wide ones at 75. And that provided a real nice balance with just a little bit extra concentration in the middle. Just something to be aware of. And honestly, you won't even need to touch it because I'm sure you'll just be building off the cue list, but just something to be aware of if you start to build stuff. And if we want, I can show you guys how to record an override if you want.
Can you do the video? You said you could add
Yeah.
video on the fader.
Yeah, so let's do that. So if you notice on these buttons, they're different colors. We have purple on all of these guys, but this one is red. And basically the color just signifies what the button and the fader are doing. So the red is the cue list. That's our tapping through each individual variable. But like the Eagles one, we can throw at any point and it does the same thing. So the reason that works, you'll see it's purple. The purple means it's an override. So the override basically says, I don't care what you have open, this is what you're doing. Which is great because there's certain functions that we want them to do the same thing all the time regardless of what queue's open. So like all of our effect lighting is on an override because this is what I want it to do. So I don't care whether we're in the sermon or anything. When I throw that fader, I want it to go. So the same way, what we can do for video is build an override that will automatically kill house and just kind of do a light color. So let's take our overflow and sanctuary spatials. We're going to set them to 0. That way they're gaining a 0 value. So even though we didn't see the lights change, we just changed the variable in the console because we had told it sanctuary spatial 0. We'll do overstage spatial at 0. We'll do baptistry spatial at 0. We'll let the cross lit a little bit of eye candy behind the video. A little bit of brightness doesn't hurt. Even our spatial bars, I think we'll leave them lit a little bit. And I'm just going to let them go blue so they're a little more subtle. We're going to go to all of our overstage wash and we're going to set them to 0 because we really don't need them lit at all. You know what? I lied. We're going to let the color stay lit just a little bit and make it blue. Maybe even less, honestly.
Yeah, because sometimes we'll switch to a video when the worship team's up there and
Yeah.
you want to be able to see where we're walking.
Yeah. And what we can even do is we'll use our overstage spatial, set them to 50% and make them blue. That way they're lit, but they're not obvious. And then really that should be it. Maybe we'll leave the sanctuary at like 25%. That way there's a little bit of something out here.
And the overflow, can you do the same
Yeah.
up there?
Yeah,
it's on.
they're at that.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then again, the same thing. We're going to click our front wash and we're just going to set it to 0. So now we're not going to see a difference, but we're telling the console, hey, we want that variable at 0. So that should be it, right? That's all of our, yeah, that's
Turn
all
the
of our
TVs on, we
pictures.
just turn this on just like normal? We don't
Yeah.
have to do anything special?
Nope.
Okay.
Never stage wash, we're set to 0. Perfect. So now we're going to say we want this to be our video override. So anytime we throw that video override fader, this is what the lights go to. So we're going to hit record. I'm going to click on where I want it to be and we'll call it video. You can use the on-screen keyboard, but since this one's sitting here, I'm going to use that one. And then I'm going to click on override. It'll save, little flashy flash. So now I'm going to double tap clear, so I'm clearing everything open.
Yeah.
But, so now when I throw that video fader, that's what it's going to go to. So if we can see a real live situation here, let's go to our sermon cue. Oh, so you got the fader up.
Wait,
So say in the middle of the sermon he wants to show a video and we don't have it pre-programmed. Now we can just slide that video fader up
fit about this.
and it's going to take us right to that look.
That's nice.
So at any point it just gives us that nice override. And because we did it as an override, it doesn't matter what cue we're on. We can go to a worship cue,
Okay, it's actually pretty new.
and the same thing, when I throw that fader, it's going to take us to that same look. So now when it's on an override, obviously your finger is controlling the fade time. So like you don't want to just do that in the middle of service. So give yourself a real nice ramp.
Cool.
And there's nothing to clear.
Oh, yeah.
So awesome. So that is your lighting console. And another quick reminder, in case you guys missed it, so your cue list value is going to show you the value within whatever's selected. So if you guys bump one of these and you go, oh no, our whole cue list is gone, remember we have to select the Sunday service cue list to see the values within it. Just FYI.
So how do you select it?
Just the
Just
button
the
right
button,
underneath the
okay.
fader. Yep. And that's a bump, which doesn't really do anything since it's
Oh.
keyless. Because you can, the bottom is bump, which just, so it'll take whatever you have on that fader to full value.
Oh, okay.
So like if I go to Go Eagles and hit the bottom button, it's just an immediate. We can do like that.
Oh.
You
Oh
know.
man.
How do we load it again? I know, so that you just
Yeah.
gotta click continue, but and then you just click the first AG.
Yep.
And then that's set.
And that's
ready
it.
To go? Okay.
That's it. So all these other, again, like we talked about, this console has way deeper options. So what I did basically is I took all the variables that we're actually going to need to access, and I put them all on one screen. So you're going to see all these other buttons, and you'll see some of them look the same. Like there's your queue list variable. That's the full view out of it, but we don't need to see that much, and I wanted to be able to see other stuff, so that's why I kind of built it all into one screen. So
That's cool.
don't get nervous about seeing all these other things. You really don't need them. And so I intentionally labeled the first one first AG. That way you knew, oh, that's us.
That's the
First AG. We need that one.
Especially if you're just learning. We do that one.
Exactly. First AG. We're at first AG. We click first AG.
And then really the only thing we would need on Sunday is that number 10 feeder, right? Theoretically.
Yep.
Yep. And then, like I said, you've got your little movement with the lights, which is kind of fun. So, like, during worship, if you want to get a little bit of movement going, kind of create some dynamic, you can just slide these guys up and just kind of lit your lights.
What does that do? It makes them like brighter and not.
Makes them chase.
It just kind of
Yeah,
makes
they
like a
chase
little
each
bit of
other.
an intensity
Okay,
chase.
I see.
One makes the bars, and then one makes the
Yep.
colored lights.
So that one right there is just your bars,
What'd you say?
and that one right there is just your colored fixtures up on the bar.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And then you do them together, and then, like I said, there's your sanctuary.
And the third one is a sanctuary.
Okay.
And then that one's
Yeah,
your
it does mess
video.
with you. Even though
That
you
one's
don't
your
see
Eagles.
it so much, it still messes with you.